Hey, hello. We're about a third of the way through the class, maybe just a little bit more in week 5 or so. And uh, and today I want to talk just a little bit about pitching your idea, which is in your book, chapter 7. Um, on the syllabus, I have chapter 7 in 2 different locations. We'll probably go back and revisit this a little bit after you guys do chapter 11, um, a little bit later on in a week or two. Okay. And the main reason that, I want to maybe revisit just a little bit is um, because once you have started building your model, your financial forecast, your pro formas, and so on and so forth. That is information that you probably want to sneak uh, into your pitch documents, right? So, essentially, what I want to cover here is that in almost all ventures, you're not going to be able to do everything yourself. You're going to need to have help along the way. And the people you need to help you, okay, need to have a belief in your vision. And they need to have a belief in your vision, as you probably have seen by now. They also need to believe in you and how your vision combines with your passion for this idea. Okay. All right. Who do you need to bring on your side? Well, if you need money, you're going to need investors, maybe a banker. Okay, but we'll talk about banks a little bit later. A venture capitalist. Okay, a relative. Okay, a rich relative. Okay, a friend. Okay, maybe to be successful, you need to find key personnel or partners. Okay, if you're a bigger venture, okay, you may need to find a chief financial officer or some other person. If you're going to start a restaurant, you're going to need to find a really good chef, right? Well, if you're doing a fancy restaurant, right? And not a line cook, right? But you're going to need to have help along the way. Money, okay? People, place. Maybe you need to find a location. Well, good luck going into a real estate office and saying you want to rent this space in a popular strip mall. Well, their question is going to be, what are you going to do with it? And can you afford it? They're not really that interested in, oh, just give me 1 month in advance. They want to know that this venture is going to last, right? That they're not going to need to uh, have you move in, have you move out, and then have the property on the out there. So in all of those instances, the partnerships you need will oftentimes depend on other people. Now, there are parts of the typical entrepreneur that make this difficult. One of the things that makes things the most difficult is that entrepreneurs tend oftentimes to feel like they need to keep their ammunition dry. They need to keep their plans close to the vest. Okay. Well, that doesn't usually work. And by the way, the people who feel that they need to keep everything secret and not tell people what it is that they're going to do because somebody could steal their problem, their project away from them. Okay, I just mentioned they were entrepreneurs. They're more likely entrepreneurs wannabes. because they probably aren't going to be successful. Okay. You're going to need help along the way. And last time I talked with you, I gave you this little, we talked about ideas, business ideas, right? And I gave you this little illustration that came from my brother's investment group and club, you know, which I mentioned at the time, I believe has more to do with drinking than anything else, right? Okay, but when they get together and socialize and talk about what each one of them is up to and what they were thinking might be a good things to do, uh, they talk about ideas. And if you remember, I said if one of the members of the group wants to take somebody else's idea and run with it, he's got to compensate the person whose idea it was. Those are the rules of the road for this little venture, this little club, if you will, right? And what did I say the value was? What is the compensation? It turns out that compensation was $5. Okay. A lot of what people are trying to hold very, very, very close to their vest is worth maybe 5, maybe 15. Okay. Maybe it's worth $100. Right. But by holding everything close to the vest, okay, chances of success go down dramatically, which means that even that $100 or even that $5, okay, is overpaid for something that's never going to be done, never going to be completed. Okay, so now I'm not saying that you want to post what you're doing on the internet for everyone to see and to put it on bumper stickers on your cars and so on and so forth. But what I am saying is you want to make sure that the people who could be your friends, could be your partners in this venture, are not in the dark and they know what it is you're trying to do because they can help you. Okay. To do this now, we need to figure out, okay, how do I communicate? How can I make a pitch? Right? And we had different levels. Okay. The first thing that I would strongly suggest, okay, and you probably develop these in maybe the opposite order, but the first thing that is on the smallest is what is often called an elevator speech. Okay, in an elevator speech, you can just imagine that you are trapped in an elevator, okay, with um, a person that you recognize you've been wanting to talk to. All right. Well, you may have 90 seconds, 120 seconds, a minute or two to introduce yourself and to give them, you know, an idea of what you're doing. Okay. Hey, I just wanted to, update you. I'm thinking of doing a really important venture, interesting venture, and I'd like to get your take on it, right? But and he says, "Oh, really? What is it?" Well, you've got 2 minutes, probably at most, more likely 1 minute, to give an elevator speech. This is who I am. This is what we're doing. This is why I think it's going to be successful. Okay. If the person is interested, they might very well say, okay, set up a time. Here's my number. Set up some time and we can talk. Right? Okay. And then you start getting to a pitch. Okay. And one of the things that I would recommend when you do the pitch is make a PowerPoint that goes with it. the PowerPoint slides. Okay? But instead of having them on a computer, print them out. Make multiple copies. Okay? And then what you can do is walk through this 10-page slide presentation, which goes into a little bit more detail. Okay? And it gives a little bit of an idea. Okay, now you have 10, 15 minutes worth of time. You've got 15 minutes of somebody's attention, right? Walk through your concept. Why it's going to be successful. What makes you different? Okay. What the hurdles are, and more importantly, what you expect the positive outcomes to be. Right. And then you may also talk about, how they might be able to help in the success. Okay. And I will be posting a couple pictures here in the next couple days. Well, I'll post a pitch that I did for a startup airline. Okay. And they'll give you a little bit of a sense as to what we would be doing. Right. At the end of giving this pitch, right? Okay. The reason that you are doing this on paper is because you are going to be, make sure I don't have anything written on here that I don't want people to see. Okay, you're going to give them a copy. And chances are, as you're going through them, okay, page by page by page, they may be writing notes. And you can leave that piece of paper with them. Okay. At the very end, if there's any serious interest, they may ask to see a copy of your business plan. Okay. At that point, the business plan has a lot more detail. And most people don't want to see the business plan if they're not interested, right? And if they are interested, asking for the business plan is kind of proof because you're kind of going through that, right? Now, yeah, there's a few things you probably want to do on the business plan and, have them sign a non-disclosure agreement or something very quickly, just to verify that the information that you are about to give them is your information, is private, right? Okay. But you don't want to, again, make that non-disclosure agreement really that strong. Okay. And here's the reason why. The people you are talking to, chances are they go in circles and they know other people that you should be talking to as well, right? And as your idea and the word spreads that you want to do something in this space, you may get a phone call from people who say, hey, I was talking to my banker, who's your banker, who says I probably should get this together. We should get together on this, that this might be a project that I might be able to help you with. Right? You want to encourage that type of discussions. Okay? In some cases, it's just like looking for a job. Finding the ideal lead sometimes is pure luck and happenstance. In the case of Pacific Empress Airlines, which is my venture that we tried to do in the 1990s, okay, that happenstance happened to be through my wife and my neighbor. Okay. My wife explained to my neighbor, what I was up to. They're talking on the side of the fence. Oh, what are you guys up to? Oh, my husband's starting to do a startup airline, and and so on and so forth. He's planning on doing this. And my neighbor said, oh, We need to get him in touch with my boss. Okay. My boss would love to do something like that. And that's how I got my chief financial officer. Okay. Through a conversation that my wife had over the fence with a neighbor. Okay. Now, you can't do that when you hold all your information close to the vest, right? Oh, don't tell anybody, dearest, don't tell anybody what we're going to be doing because they might think this is a great idea, and all of a sudden I wake up and they have started a jet airline out of Los Angeles. Theoretically, could it have happened? Maybe. Okay. One of the people I wanted to talk to was my CEO at AT&T Universal Card. Okay. He had announced that he was leaving, and I wanted to see whether he wanted to be my chief CEO once we uh, were able to raise the money, right? But he had a reputation that was kind of weird and a little bit on the iffy side. Okay. An example of this was he was fired from uh, a bank in Pennsylvania. He was their credit card director. And he went on vacation for 2 weeks. When he came back, he didn't have a job anymore. He got fired. Okay. Okay. Why did he get fired? Well, it wasn't that he went on vacation. Okay. It wasn't where he went on vacation. He went to Europe and did the Orient Express luxury train trip, right? Why did he get fired? It was with whom he went on this trip with. He went on this trip with his boss's wife. Okay, all right, all right. To this day, the two of them, you know, they ended up getting married. I guess she got divorced first. They got married, and as far as I know, they're still together, right? But uh, that's kind of the mindset of this individual. And as okay, of anybody, I'm the most worried about this guy. And in addition, because he was already a CEO of a very, very large company, and he ended up dropping out of our venture because he was offered the position of a CEO for a New York Stock Exchange traded company. So he took that and kind of left our little venture, uh, which is fine. Okay. But anyways, he was the type of individual, had he wanted to start an airline, he could have done it without me. So quite honestly, I was a little bit nervous, and for the first time uh, on something like that, I decided it's better to go talk to a lawyer first. And I talked with a lawyer and um, asked the lawyer, how can we write a non-compete clause? And my lawyer looked at it, looked at everything, and he said, we can write you an ironclad legal document, but your guy would be an idiot to sign it, and he won't. Right? And he basically said there is nothing that would stop him from starting an airline. There is nothing that would stop him from starting an airline out of Los Angeles. Right? Okay. But the key thing is, he would be in a much better shape if he started this company or with you and all of your knowledge and everything you have done to this date than starting it from complete scratch, right? So this lawyer's advice, the one that would get paid to actually have write the legal contract, basically said your strategy is go talk to them, be nice to them, okay, and be more worried about how you guys could work together or whether you can't work together than worrying about whether he's going to steal your idea and run with it. Okay. That was kind of good advice ish, right? It's not what I had expected. I had expected him to be lawyerly and say, yeah, we need to make sure that everything you give him is going to be absolutely kosher, right? No. He said, make sure that the documents you give him clearly illustrate, have a sign down on the bottom that this is property of, of you, and, you know, that you have documentation that you gave him your property, right? That he knows that he needs to give this back if you ask him for it. Okay. Anyways, he ran off. He didn't start an airline. He started another credit card company. He ended up buying a company in the credit card space. Okay. And renamed it Ideon Corporation. And there is a crater in Jacksonville, Florida, where this thing just exploded in a not so good way. It was a disaster. This is a person who had always had the Midas touch in the credit card field. Everything he touched, every decision he made turned to gold. As soon as he left me, joined this other company, became their CEO, everything he touched turned to lead and mold, and it was a bad sight. And anyways, that's a different discussion for a different day. Anyways, so let's kind of talk about where we're at. Okay. Hopefully, this morning I found out when I went to take a look at everybody's technical challenge, and to make sure that when I clicked on them that they would open up and give me a self-guided lecture on how to add one and add 1 + 1, right? And lo and behold, there were none up there to be graded. So that homework that I had posted didn't actually have a spot for you to submit the combined file. Hopefully that's been fixed. Hopefully you did not delete your combined PowerPoints from your computer, so you can just upload that. Please do that. And I just want to verify that you have successfully combined an audio file together with the PowerPoint deck that you were in the process of putting together, right? Okay. With that, I am going to start asking for volunteers of what day or what week you would like to have your presentations presented. So we will download each one of your presentations, and then you will listen to each one of them, and then we will comment upon how each video is different from the previous videos. Okay, so one video that should already be out there would be from Ms. Bigelow. Okay. And for those who have had me in other classes, you've probably heard me talk about how small the world is. Okay. I happen to know Mrs. Bigelow, Ms. Bigelow. Okay. I don't know if she's married or not anymore, but Bigelow, I think, was her maiden name. She went to school with me in Chicago, graduate school. I was in the PhD program. She was in the MBA program. Why we met, I'm not absolutely, my memory isn't really that clear because the two programs really did not interact together. It may very well have been that I may have been a TA, teaching assistant in one of her classes, but I don't really recall. But I know Cynthia Bigelow, okay? Or I did, what is it, 40 years ago, 30, 40 years ago. All right. But here we go about, looking at the Entrepreneurship Institute, and here we have a presentation on Bigelow tea, right? Uh, so I got knowledge of that. So it's a small world, which goes back to you know, if you are not afraid to let others around you know what your task is, what you are trying to do, there are people who they know that would be absolutely helpful for you to know in this process, right? It's a small world. The people that you know can help you. The people who you know have people they know that can help you. And going back to my chief financial officer, who I got because my wife talked to my neighbor, okay, who told me I need to get in touch with his boss and did the introductions. His boss was a Notre Dame alumni. Okay. And boy, I wish I wish the Javelina Nation would learn from the Fighting Irish. The Fighting Irish stick together. They know everybody. Okay. A couple years ago, and at this point it probably was 5 years ago or so, I was at a SCORE meeting. Okay. And we accepted a new volunteer, and it was actually a Christmas meeting. I met with him, and he introduced himself, and he said, I found out, that he had gone to Notre Dame, and I said, oh, I know a couple other people that went to Notre Dame, uh, that are in this area. Would you like me to introduce you? Right? And he kind of laughed. And he said, yeah, there are 27 of us. And I have already sat down and met with 25 of them. Right? Okay. All right. It is an alumni association. You guys are Javelinas forever. Right? Okay. The Notre Dame Alumni Network stick together and help each other in every way, and they make sure they get to know each other and so on and so forth. It is a fraternity like you would not believe. Okay. My wish for you is that as Javelinas, you build the same thing. And you have a little bit of that already in South Texas. In that in South Texas, the movers and the shakers are Javelinas. They're not Islanders. They're not whatever UT Rio Grande Valley is. Cowboys or whatever. They're Javelinas. Okay. This was we celebrate the 100th birthday of our university. This was the university down here. Corpus Christi is too young. The movers and the shakers would have graduated much later than that. Many of the islanders come from the San Antonio area. When they graduate, they go back to San Antonio. Okay, if you look at the business leaders in Corpus and South Texas, we already have an alumni network. Use it. Introduce yourself as a fellow alumni, right? And as entrepreneurs, as people looking for jobs, it is a great source for informational interviews. If you are starting a venture, it's a great source to start informational interviews about asking for advice as to how to go about your venture, okay? And how, you know, how other people who might be worth talking to give you advice. All right. Having said that, I went back off on the track. Okay, so we have the Bigelow tea example. You will, on a very small scale, have done this with your. Um, uh, you will have already done this with the math exercise, right? And you are now going to be doing this with the audio file you've been assigned, right? Test it, make sure it works, send it to a friend using a different computer, make sure it works on an Apple, not an Apple, but a Microsoft product, and we'll kind of go for there and then download it. Okay. Use of AI. Okay. Use of computers and so on and so forth. Well, we have some technological benefits now that we didn't have 10, 15, 20 years ago, right? And this will help you potentially pull up information, and in particular, not videos, but in particular, pictures of things that might have been talked about, right? And I don't mind you using those. All I do is twofold. One is I will probably ask you to give me a document about your use of AI or your lack of use of AI in this exercise. Right? All right. That's partially for my benefit, so I can learn how people have successfully used AI in their projects. Right? Couple words of warning. Okay. You've all heard potential stories about how AI sometimes invents things. Okay. It pulls things together, and sometimes it doesn't completely know what it's doing. Computers are extremely fast at what they do, but computers are essentially the stupidest of machines that make up for their stupidity in their speed that they're able to operate. Right? At the core basis, everything computers do deals with zeros and ones and asks the question, you know, and or, right? And, on zeros and ones, Boolean logic. Okay. But they are extremely fast. And you had programmers who would program things in computer languages that became machine languages and so on and so forth. And now AI essentially is computer programs that program computer programs to start mimicking how humans make decisions, supposedly, right? And they do so extremely fast and are able, therefore, to look at information from millions, if not billions, of places where you might have time to look at 10. Okay. Now, a few things computers are miserable at. Computers are miserable at understanding sarcasm, right? They just don't get it. What will they do? They will take that sarcastic sentence as if it were absolute fact. And then they will run with that absolute fact, not fully understanding anything, right? So what you oftentimes will see is really, 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 really stupid results coming out of AI. Okay, so your task is don't take what you get out of AI without you doing quality control checking to make sure that this is legitimate, okay, and that this is actually useful for you, right? So with that, I don't object to you using it. What I would like to do is make sure that these presentations are as powerful and as good as they can, because not only are you doing it for a grade, you're doing it to show the rest of the class, and the rest of the class hopefully will be learning from your presentations, right? Okay, so please, please, please make sure that you do things, and if you use computer resources, make sure you understand and you verify that what you actually are handing in and what is on each one of those slides is actually true and not some figment of the imagination of this particular AI, or not something that was created because AI read something somewhere along the lines that wasn't true. Garbage in goes garbage out is what the old IT saying was. In AI, garbage in over 1 trillion different times from thousands of different people all get congregated together, and oftentimes may be regurgitated, okay, by your AI system. Word of warning. Second thing is, if you do use AI, please keep a log of what you did, maybe a log of your search queries for them, and then I'll have you submit those to me at the end of the class. It won't be a graded exercise, but it will help me understand a little bit about what the drawbacks are, right? And because we're learning as faculty members just like you are. Anyways, with that, I'm going to call it quits for right now. We will have an open book test, and it will be on chapters 1, 2, 4, 5, and 7. I think your syllabus says that will open up tomorrow, so I need to pull that together for you on that. Okay, with that, we'll do one more discussion board, and the next discussion board, I just want you to look at your person. Remember the exercise we did with what color hat you were? What color hat do you think that this entrepreneur that you've been assigned is at, right? And you may make a comment or two about how they are similar or not similar to you. Okay. All right. So that's my video for this week. We'll talk later. Bye-bye.